What's going on YouTube? I am Prepper Princess, the author of Living on Almost Nothing. If you are interested in purchasing my book, I will go ahead and leave a link down in the description box below. A lot of people are very confused and intimidated by investing, and trust me, I completely understand. Before I got to learn how to invest, I was intimidated. It was overwhelming. There were too many options, too many choices, and it gets really confusing, really intimidating, really fast. So here are Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and Vanguard are the three most popular investment brokerages that you can go to. It is as easy as going to charlesschwab.com or fidelity.com. Click the open an account tab, and what it's going to do is it's sort of like opening up a Netflix account. It's going to connect to your bank account, and then you transfer money from your bank account into your brokerage. And then once you have that money available in your brokerage, that's when you invest it. Now, a lot of people, the problem I think that we have with social media for the most part is that when you go to these financial channels that talk about investing, they talk about those one-off investments, like for a singular company. So AMC, Tesla, Microsoft, Apple, and you assume that you have to find that one company that is going to make your investment grow. 99.9% of the time, that's a bad move. Investing in individual companies for people who don't have experience in investing is a bad idea. What I do for the most part, so I've shown on here previous videos of individual companies that I have invested in. It's very few. It's less than 20% of my overall portfolio. And I only invest in 5 companies. That's Apple, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, MPLX, and Amcor. Those are the only 5 individual companies that I invest in, and I don't recommend investing in those individual companies. The majority of my money is in a Schwab S&P 500 index and a Schwab 1000 index. Those are index funds. An index fund is like when you see on those banners that go across like Manhattan at the investing place or whatever, NASDAQ 5,000, NASDAQ 200, 2,000, NASDAQ 2,000, that is an index fund. The S&P, that is an index fund. Russell 2000, that is an index fund. And you can see even in the names what it is. So for instance, the Russell 2000, that's an index. 2000, that means that they take the top 2,000 companies in the stock market and they put it in a big basket, and you're investing in all 2,000 of those companies. So you don't have to pick an individual company. You can take the stress off with that. The S&P 500, there you go right there, 500. So it takes the top 500 companies, Fortune 500 companies of the stock market, and it invests in those. The S&P 1000, there you go, 1,000. So 1,000 companies, it takes the top 1,000 companies and it invests in those. So the ones that I have in Charles Schwab are the S&P 500 is SWPPX. That is the ticker symbol. It's just like an abbreviation. It's sort of like an abbreviation. The S&P 1000, that is SNXFX, okay? So that is the S&P 500 and the S&P 1000. Over time, when people invest, they put their money in and then they have to check it every day. Like it has to go up every day or I'm totally screwed. Don't do that. Don't do that, because the stock market is up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And if you put your money in, say you put in $1,000 and the next day it's at $950, $1,000, $950. A lot of people will freak out and they're like, I lost money in the stock market. I'm taking it all out now. I'm never doing this again. That is the wrong thing to do, because if it goes down to $950, historically the stock market has done nothing but go up. I mean, there's ups and downs, yes. But historically, 10% per year over years. There's obviously crashes. There's the 2001 dot-com bubble, the 2008 housing crash. Lots of crashes happen, but it always recovers. It has always recovered, and the stock market has been around for not just since the Great Depression. It's been around for like hundreds of years. So you really have to get over that emotional fear of initially possibly losing money in an index fund, and just leaving the money there to grow and continuing to put money in. When it comes to individual stocks, that's different because you can put, well, these are really good companies, but I'm going to use Coca-Cola as an example, which to me is a good investment, but I don't recommend doing individual companies. But let's say you put $1,000 in Coca-Cola and then Coca-Cola goes bankrupt. Well, you're going to have $0. All your money's gone. But if you're investing in the top 1,000 companies, what are the statistical odds of all 1,000 of those companies going completely bankrupt? And you have to remember too, that since it's like the top 1,000 companies, if one of those companies goes bankrupt and drops off, then the next company will just move one step up, and the 1,001th company will become the 1,000th. And people say, what if it all crashes? Okay. If the top 1,000 or 2,000 or the Russell 3,000 or whatever, if the top 3,000 companies in the United States go bankrupt, you have a lot more to worry about than just your investment portfolio. If that were to happen, that is apocalypse. Like seriously, that is SHTF apocalypse. Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, and you are, robbing your neighbor for a cup of water. That's an exaggeration, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. So if that were to happen, it would be so horribly bad. It wouldn't just be the stock market, the entire, not just the economy, the country would be going to hell in a handbasket. It's over. So it's not really something that people should be worrying about nearly as much as they should. And then people will say, there's always political stuff behind it. There's always like people saying, well, the dollar's collapsing and China's going to take over. You need to look at the real financials of China and the real financials of the United States. We are so far above any other country, even collection of countries. You put China and whatever other country together, put 5 different countries together, our finances are still 20 times more stable than the next 5 top countries in the world. So stop worrying about that. And let's say that, you do lose everything, and you had it in like the standard S&P 500 and you lost everything. At least you tried. You know what I'm saying? At least you did everything right. At least you did your best. Not investing is the best way to live on almost nothing for your entire life, to be living on Social Security and food stamps and Medicare and Medicaid or whatever it is. I always highly recommend investing. Now, if you are totally overwhelmed, you have no clue, you can't do it yourself, there's 2 things you can do. Number 1 is you can go, and I would recommend a fiduciary financial advisor. My financial advisor is Joseph Laswell in Ripon, California. I will do my best. Sometimes I forget, but I will do my best to leave his contact information in the description box below so you can contact him, reach out to him. And what a fiduciary does is they take hold of all of your investments and they invest it for you. Yes, they charge 1 or 2% per year. But if the stock market is going up 10%, they're trying to beat the stock market, maybe getting 12, 13%. And then that extra 2% is just, it would average out to the average 10%. Another thing that you can do is meet with a fiduciary financial advisor. A lot of financial advisors can do this online, with Zoom calls and stuff like that. And you can schedule something with them they'll charge you for it, of course, and they should charge you for their time and their expertise, but they can tell you exactly what you should invest in, and then you can go and do it yourself. That's up to you. I always recommend a fiduciary because they are required by law to have your best interest in heart, and they cannot or should not invest in things where you can lose more money than you can afford to lose. So it's very important that they are fiduciary and not just some Joe Schmo down at Wells Fargo Bank. You want a fiduciary because they have your best interest at heart by law. And the other thing about investing, it is literally like the easiest thing. And I know that you guys are overwhelmed. I know that you think that you have to choose individual companies. You don't have to choose individual companies. If you're freaked out, just go with the S&P 500 or the S&P 1000, or you can even do like the overall stock market. Another good one is VOO, VOO, that's Vanguard, and that's the S&P 500. I actually have a little bit in there, but it's like a double up of the Schwab S&P 500. So VOO and SWPPX are pretty much the same thing, just with different brokerages. One's with Vanguard, one's with Charles Schwab. My bad. Oops. It happens. I'm trying to think of what else I would recommend. I do also personal, and I can't give personal financial advice. For starters, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not certified in anything. This is just stuff that I've learned from my own personal life and the hard knocks of living. So I can't give you personal advice. What is good for me as a 42-year-old single female is going to be totally different than a 65-year-old male with 4 children. You know what I'm saying? With someone with a net worth of $2 million is going to be totally different than someone with a net worth of $50,000. It's going to be, everybody is so vastly different when it comes to investing that there is no way I can give personal financial investment advice. And that is why I always recommend going and talking to a financial advisor if you want to invest. Me personally, I have seen huge gains in my portfolio. And if you've been watching for a long time, you'll know that I'm a millionaire. That by no means, now people who don't understand money, that by no means have I invested $1 million. There's no way. I'm not going to go into my accounts and go back in 20 years and find out exactly how much I invested in order to get to this specific dollar amount. But it's very possible, since I've been doing this for 20 years, that I only invested $100,000. I mean, the stock market has been giving 25% returns for like decades now. It's possible that I only put in $100,000, or I only put in $75,000 or $150,000, and that grew into more than $1 million over time. But I didn't just scrimp and save $1 million and then put it in the stock market a year ago. That's not how I did it, So this is the way that compounding interest works. And the younger you are, the younger you start, the easier it is and the faster, like it's so much easier. When you're 18 years old and you put in, let's say you for 1 year, you can somehow in a brokerage account, like you just work your tail off and you're able to put in $25,000 in 1 year when you're 18, and then you just leave it, your retirement's taken care of. That's all it takes. That's like, seriously, with compounding interest, putting it in the S&P 500, that's all it takes. You're going to be possibly a multimillionaire by the time you retire if you do that when you're 18. So all you had to do was work your tail off and save for 1 year, and your entire retirement, you're going to live you're not like a king, but you're going to live a really comfortable retirement life if you were able to do that when you're 18. That compounding interest really is magical. All right, folks. I hope that this video has been helpful. Please go to charlesschwab.com. You can even call them and ask for somebody to help you if you're confused. I personally do a lot of my brokerage with Charles Schwab. I also have Fidelity. I don't have Vanguard, but I've heard that I used to have Vanguard in my 401k. They were my 401k, but I don't have them anymore. It was transferred over, job after job. But Charles Schwab and Fidelity are great. Very easy to use. And once you fiddle around with the websites, very easy to understand. Very easy, extremely easy to invest. You just transfer money. It's just like you transfer money over and then you pick where you want to put it. And that's how it works. It doesn't have to be intimidating or scary. It's actually, once you really get down into the nitty gritty, it's incredibly boring. It's incredibly boring and easy. I promise you that. All right, folks, do what you can with what you've got. Prepper Princess out.